Alright, so today I'm going to be showing you some of the most basic carpetboarding tricks. Some of these tricks will be easy for you if you're a beginner at skateboarding too. Some of them might require a bit more skill, but overall these are going to be the first tricks you'll probably learn on a carpetboard. So the first thing you're going to need to know about carpetboarding is that it's basically the exact same as skateboarding. If you can do a trick on a skateboard, then at least in theory you should be able to do it on a carpetboard. It'll just be a lot harder. Mainly because of this. Notice the lack of wheels? Yeah, that makes it harder because you pretty much got no pop. You got like that much pop. So that makes any trick that requires a lot of, like, you to ollie really high, that's out of the question basically, unless you have a lot of skill already. The first one that I think most people should have that's barely even considered a trick would be the basic kick turn. There's two ways to do this. You could do it just like you would on a skateboard, lift the back tail and do like a manual 180 and then just get consistent at that. Or you could do it like that, like a backside revert. But learn however you want, try everything. That's just a general rule. Your next most basic trick you're going to want to learn is the shuvit. This trick is infinitely easier on a carpetboard in my opinion. Mainly because there's no friction with the wheels. On a skateboard, it's going to be hard to get that scoop around because the wheels are not going to want to spin with it. And then if you land like this, you're just going to go flying if you have any amount of speed. So you have to land it with pretty much not perfect technique, but you have to get a good turn and scoop and you have to have a good balance. On a carpetboard, it's a lot more simple. You just take these feet and you just make it do a 180, but you don't move your body. And it really is that simple on a carpetboard. On a skateboard, I would say a shuvit is a lot harder than people make it out to be. In my opinion, a shuvit is harder to learn than a kickflip, if you ask me. But a shuvit on a carpetboard, it really just takes the idea of doing that 180, but not turning your shoulders, and that's all it is. It's a lot easier if you jump higher. That's one of the key things about a shuvit, is that if you jump really high, it has more time to scoop. So you can scoop it really slow, but if you jump high enough, then it should be able to turn. Like that, and then you can fall over and look stupid in front of your dog. The next trick I'd recommend learning is a combination of the two. You may also know it as the big spin. It's pretty simple technique. It's basically taking that idea of you do the 180 and you do a shuvit. If you can fakey big spin on the skateboard, it's good to think of it like that. But once you get this down, it helps me to think of it as a regular big spin. Mostly because I get more scoop that way. If I think of it as a regular big spin, I think, okay, I have to really like throw my shoulders and pull the board around with me. If I think of it as a fakey big spin, I just think, oh yeah, it's a 180 shove it, which helps. But I would say once you get it down, it's definitely better to think of it as a scooping trick like you would do regular. Something that I definitely don't want to leave out is that carpetboarding just drains your energy so fast. If you carpetboard for 10 minutes, it's worth like an hour of regular skateboarding. I don't know if it's because usually carpetboarding is done in the winter, your house is usually going to be heated in the winter, or if it's just because like you have to put so much energy into every trick. Like the tricks on a carpetboard are going to take a lot more effort than on a skateboard. I can say that for sure. So it's probably a combination of the two. Moving on to the next trick, we have the 360 shuvit. It shouldn't really take that much thought to figure out how this one works. It's essentially the exact same as a fakey big spin, except once again, you don't turn your shoulders. If you want to think of it as a shuvit with another shuvit without moving your foot, you could do that, although I would not recommend that because that doesn't really help. Like, yeah, that's just a weird way to think of it for me. But yeah, just think it's the exact same thing, except I would recommend putting your feet more, like think of a line down the middle of your board. This foot you're going to want on this side of the line, this one you're going to want on this side of the line. Or with a regular shuvit, you can have your feet literally anywhere. If I put my feet here, I could probably still do a shuvit. Yeah, see, it doesn't really take that. With the 360 shuvit, I'd like to put my feet in basically a tray flip position. I'm assuming if you're learning a 360 shuvit on a carpet board, you probably aren't doing tray flips yet. I mean, you might be, but who knows. But yeah, basically you can do it scooped or popped. It really doesn't matter as long as you get that board around 360. It's not, I'm not going to say this trick is really easy or anything, or make it all dramatic, like, oh, you should have this trick within this long, but I will say, like, it's not that complicated. If you can do a big spin, I guarantee you, with enough time and effort, you can do the 360 shuvit. This is a bit of a goofier trick. This one might be a little bit too easy to even bother with, but it is the airwalk. You might be thinking, what? Airwalk? Easy? Are you freaking kidding me? And to that I say, yeah, I'm dead serious. I can't airwalk on a skateboard, but for some reason, it's extremely easy on a carpet board. All you gotta do is pop, like that. Don't even do an ollie. Don't think of it as an ollie and then an airwalk. Just think, pop the board, and then just kick your feet to the side and grab the nose. You could also do it scare walk style, which I usually do. Scare walk is the same thing, but grabbing with the back hand. To me, that looks a lot better, and I can usually kick my feet out further. A pop shuvit is basically the same as a regular shuvit, except you've really got to decompress your weight onto the tail. Rather than just scooping, you got to focus on really taking all your weight and just like putting it all into that tail and then scooping almost once you're in the air. That one feels pretty satisfying. You might be wondering what I would recommend next, actually, because it's not really clear, like, is it going to be an ollie? Is it going to be like a front shove? But it's not. It's neither of those. It's actually a kickflip. Yeah, I know, it seems weird to learn a kickflip before an ollie. But an ollie on a carpet board is an extremely awkward trick, at least in my opinion. When I do an ollie, I have to wait a second with my foot and then delay the slide, like, and I have to bone out the ollie more than I normally would. With the kickflip, it's the exact same technique as on a skateboard. The only thing that might change a little bit is just putting in that extra 10% of effort. It's not quite as difficult as doing a double flip, but it's close. You are going to need to get a good amount of flick on this. Also, crouching down, you're going to want to crouch down a little more, and you might want to put your feet more towards the middle of the board. That's something else it does. I didn't even think about that, but it does tend to flick backwards a little bit. Where with a kickflip on a regular skateboard, it usually flips and goes straight. Kickflip on a carpet board tends to flip behind you, so you might need to jump backwards a little bit, but that problem is easily fixed. If you can kickflip consistently on a skateboard, you can do a kickflip on a carpet board. There's no doubt in my mind. Here's a trick that I think is extremely hard, but I know some people think that it's easier than a regular kickflip, which would be the Heelflip. Watch this. I'm probably not going to even get it because I am not consistent at this trick. Yeah, I think you can skip this trick if you want. You can skip any of these tricks if they're too hard. That's the thing about skateboarding that I feel like people don't mention in tutorials. If you don't want to learn a trick, if you don't understand a trick, you can skip it and move on. It's just like a math test. If you don't understand the question, just move on to the next one, and you might get that one first. Even though some people might say that a kickflip is harder than a frontside 180, I learned kickflips way before frontside 180s, and I still suck at frontside 180s, but I can kickflip every try. So it depends on who you are and how your body moves and all that stuff. A heel flip It works the exact same as on a skateboard, of course. One thing that I do differently is I flick a lot more like that rather than like rolling my ankle like I would. I think this helps me get the proper like flick around, where if I do it with my heel, it'll just barely turn. Maybe this is just me, but I also like to put my foot further, literally behind me. Not further back on the board, but rather than having my toes hanging off, I like to have my heel hanging off, which probably would be really weird to some of you, but almost in a kickflip position is how I think of it. Also, delay the flick of it too. That is important. If you don't delay the flick, then you're just going to end up doing this, and that's not fun for anyone. So, delay the flick, kick it with your toes. I mean, it might be easier for your heel with you, but for me, I flick it with my toes, hang my heel off the back, and I still can't do it. Okay, I'll cut to a clip of me doing it, or I'll just do it this try. Do it this try. Now we're moving on to the last of what I would consider basic tricks. We move on to the varial kickflip. This one, I like to point my foot almost at a straight angle. Like point your foot towards the heel flip side rather than towards this end of the deck. Point it like right at this corner, at least I do, or even more vertical. That tends to help. I usually put my ball of my foot right at the edge of the board and kick almost directly forward. That will compensate for the fact that the board's spinning. If you kick this way, then the board will be already spinning and you won't have any flick. If you kick in the direction that the board is moving, you'll get a better chance to flick it. Oh, ow! When you land that trick, it's really satisfying in my opinion. That's one of the best feeling tricks on a carpet board. It's essentially just mixing a kickflip and a pop shove it. The last of the basic tricks, in my opinion, would be the backside flip. I like to think of it as a half cab flip rather than a backside flip. That just helps me think of the 180 easier. It helps me turn my shoulders easier. But really, whatever suits you. Like, if you're better at backside flips than half cab flips, knock yourself out. Like, I don't think it'll affect it too much. But at this point, you're probably getting familiar with the technique of carpet boarding, and you probably won't need these tutorials. But one thing I will tell you, this is the final trick to do late flips. You might be thinking that that's not really a secret, like you can do late flips on a regular skateboard, but they are beyond easy on a carpet board as compared to a skateboard. I mean, they're not that easy, but they're a lot easier than they would be on a regular skateboard. The way I learned them was to think of doing an ollie north. How you do it on a carpet board, where you do that, and then you hit the front of your board with your back foot to make it pop up. At least that's how I do ollie norths. And then I thought, instead of doing that, I'll just do it like a kickflip, which I think that really helps. And yeah, I would say those are pretty much all the easy tricks on a carpet board. One final thing is that carpet boarding is very, very loud and very likely to smash into walls or into other things. But generally, I would say you're going to have a lot of fun if you start carpet boarding. It'll be a fun thing to do over the winter when you don't have a chance to skateboard. I highly recommend it.